Welcome to the Deep Dive. I am your host, and today we are looking at a set of notes that argue true spirituality has absolutely nothing to do with, like, adding a new meditation routine to your life.
Right. I'm your resident expert for today, and I have to say this material is wild. It basically argues that spirituality is all about the physics of a black hole,
Yeah, exactly. We are going to unpack this really fascinating conceptual framework that maps human consciousness directly onto astrophysics.
which sounds intense, but, it is actually highly practical.
It really is. I mean,
Yeah.
our mission today is to figure out how visualizing your own sense of self as a literal physical singularity might actually be, well, the ultimate hack for cutting through the absolute chaos of modern life.
It is a completely counterintuitive approach to self-awareness. I mean, we usually think of spirituality as something deeply mystical,
Right.
right, or esoteric.
Yeah.
But the source material we are looking at today, it grounds it entirely in physical laws.
Yeah.
Concepts like mass, gravity, and cosmic expansion.
Which honestly makes it so much more approachable. Like, have you ever had that moment where you are looking up at the night sky on a really clear, dark night?
Oh, absolutely. Out away from the city lights.
Right. And you get this immense, quiet feeling of awe. You're looking at the universe, this massive expanse of stars and galaxies, and it feels incredibly vast, but also, I don't know, deeply ordered.
Yeah, the physics of it just makes sense.
Yeah.
Gravity, mass, orbits. It's elegant.
Exactly. But then you look down from the night sky, you pull out your phone to check your calendar for the week, and suddenly that feeling of elegant order just vanishes entirely.
Poof, gone.
Right. You look at your to-do list, the unread messages, the social obligations, and it just feels like absolute chaos. It feels like you are being pulled in 1,000 different directions at once.
Yeah, you are literally losing your sense of self to the schedule.
Yes. And the typical modern response to that psychological fragmentation, is to go out and try to acquire more.
Right, like we download a new mindfulness app or, we buy a new self-help book.
Or we try to adopt some complex, like, 10-step morning routine. We feel chaotic, so we try to add more mass to the chaos.
Exactly. But the central aha moment of this framework completely flips that script. It argues that fixing this feeling of overwhelm isn't about adding anything to your life at all.
Okay, let's unpack this, because this is the core of it, right?
Yeah, it is about an inward return. And to understand what an inward return actually means in practice, we really have to look at your baseline.
Like where you started.
Right. Think about the timeline of your life. Before language, before culture, before your parents' expectations or your boss's demands shaped who you currently are, there was an original state.
Originality. That is the exact term used in the notes.
Yes, and this is where the astrophysics metaphor really kicks into high gear. This original state is compared to the universe before the Big Bang, a singularity.
Wow, okay.
Think about the physical reality of a singularity in astrophysics. It is a point of infinite density. It is the entire universe, all of its matter, all of its energy, compacted into a single silent point.
Before time and space as we know them even began to expand.
Exactly. When applied to human consciousness, this basically describes your internal baseline.
The notes describe this internal state as dense, silent, and containing 100% of your potential energy. I love that phrasing so much. 100% of your potential energy.
That's powerful.
It is. And the most crucial detail here is that this singularity isn't something you create. You don't, like, build it from scratch. It is the foundation that was already there.
And that distinction, it completely shifts the paradigm of personal growth. I mean, when people talk about finding themselves, the language implies a search mission, right?
Yeah, like you have to go out and discover it.
Exactly. It implies that your true self is hiding somewhere out in the world, and you have to go acquire it. But if your original state is a singularity, it means everything you need is already perfectly compacted at your core.
It makes me think of a brand new smartphone right out of the box.
Oh, that's a really good analogy.
Yeah, like before you connect it to Wi-Fi, before you download a single app, before the notifications start pinging, and, the messy cache data slows the whole operating system down.
Right.
It is just pure, unadulterated operating potential. It's fast, the battery is at 100%, and it is completely silent. That is your inward singularity.
But of course, keeping a smartphone disconnected in a box isn't the goal, because a phone in a box doesn't interact with the world.
True, it's basically a paperweight at that point.
Right. The point is that the pristine state is the hardware's truth. So spirituality, under this astrophysics model, is no longer about seeking some external enlightenment software to install.
It is entirely about stripping away the bloatware.
Yes. You are trying to reveal and sustain that unique, original signal that is already broadcasting from your core just by removing the interference.
Which brings up a pretty massive friction point for anyone listening, I think. Because if this pure silent singularity is our natural perfect state with 100% of our potential energy,
Right. The obvious question is,
why do I wake up on a Tuesday morning feeling like a scattered mess? Like, why do we feel stressed and anxious and completely disconnected from that silent core most of the time?
because you didn't stay in the box. A physical reaction took place. If the singularity is your inner core, the external world is the Big Bang.
Okay, so the moment you're born,
And especially as you grow into a functioning adult, there is an outward expansion.
meaning the world is constantly trying to pull you outward.
Exactly. Just like the physical universe is constantly expanding outward from the point of the Big Bang, the external world acts as an outward expansion.
Yeah.
Society, your career, your relationships.
It's all just pulling aggressively at your attention.
And the forces doing the pulling are categorized here in the notes as the noise.
The noise. Okay, what does that include?
The noise consists of your to-do lists, the expectations of others, social comparisons, the relentless 24-hour news cycle. These things are literally defined in the framework as the debris of the Big Bang.
The debris. I mean, calling my overflowing email inbox the debris of a cosmic explosion makes it feel a little more epic, I won't lie.
Right. It frames it differently.
Yeah.
But there is a very real danger outlined here called the fragmentation.
What happens during fragmentation?
As your attention moves further from your center, further out into that expansion, your sense of self becomes fragmented. It gets thinned out. Look at the sheer physics of it.
Okay.
Energy is finite. So if you take the dense energy of a singularity and stretch it across a massive expanding universe, the energy per cubic foot drops dramatically.
It cools down.
Exactly. It becomes sparse. In human terms, when your attention is caught up in the debris of 100 different social expectations and microtasks, your sense of self literally thins out.
Wow. So you feel empty not because you lack something, but because you are spread too wide.
Yes, you're just spread too thin across the debris.
Okay, wait, I have to jump in here and push back on this on behalf of everyone listening. Because isn't the Big Bang of life kind of the whole point?
How do you mean?
Well, going to work, making friends, creating art, building a family, actually doing things in society, isn't that necessary? We can't just float in a silent, dense void forever, ignoring the world like an unactivated phone in a dark room.
Oh, absolutely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, that is exactly the trap people fall into when they think about detachment or minimalism.
Right.
But the framework actually anticipates this friction. The outward expansion isn't evil. It isn't wrong. It is simply a physical reality. The universe expands. Society demands attention.
So the danger is not the existence of the external world itself.
No, not at all. The danger is allowing yourself to be entirely thinned out among the debris without a counterforce.
How interesting. A counterforce.
Right. If you only experience the outward pull, you eventually lose all connection to your original source. You become nothing but debris yourself, floating further and further into the cold dark, purely reacting to whatever bumps into you next.
Just a rock bouncing off other rocks in space, which is terrifying, honestly.
It is.
Because I know I have had weeks where I felt exactly like that. Like, I wasn't initiating anything. I was just a piece of debris reacting to whatever email or crisis hit me next.
You were entirely defined by the collision.
Exactly. So, since we do have to live in this expanding, noisy universe, how do we keep from being completely fragmented by it?
This is where the concept of internal gravity comes into play. Because the world is always trying to pull you into its expansion, you have to consciously maintain a pullback toward your center.
Here is where it gets really interesting. Cultivating internal gravity.
Think about the fundamental force of gravity in astrophysics. It is the exact counterforce to the universe's expansion. It pulls matter together.
Okay.
In this framework, your internal gravity is your conscious effort to pull your attention and your identity back to your original singularity.
And here's what is so fascinating about that idea to me. Maintaining this gravity is not about stopping the world from moving. You aren't trying to halt the expansion of the universe.
No, you couldn't even if you tried.
Right. It is about remaining so dense and grounded in your original state that the external noise cannot scatter you.
It all comes down to mass and density. The greater your internal density, the stronger your gravity.
It makes me think of being an anger in a rushing river, like the water, which is the world's noise, the debris, the expectations that water is going to keep rushing by.
Right, you aren't trying to dam the river.
Exactly. But Your gravity, the sheer weight and density of your anchor, keeps you from being swept downstream. You feel the current, but you aren't displaced by it.
I love that analogy. Take that anchor visual further. Imagine that rushing river isn't just water, but a constant physical flood of Slack notifications, urgent text messages, and social media feeds.
Ugh, my daily life, basically.
Right. If you don't have that internal weight, every single ping sweeps you a few feet further downriver. You spend your entire day just trying to swim back to where you started.
Which sounds completely exhausting.
It is exhausting. And this is exactly why the original notes insist heavily on the idea of persistent practice.
Persistent practice, so it's an active thing.
Very active. Gravity isn't a switch you can just turn on and walk away from, because the outward pull of the universe is constant. Your inward pull must also be constant. It requires active, continuous effort.
So this isn't like a one-time aha moment where you realize you have a singularity and then you are suddenly cured forever.
Far from it. It is a daily, sometimes hourly, exertion of internal gravity to pull your focus back to the center. Every single time you feel yourself getting swept away by the debris, you have to actively engage that gravitational pull.
So what does this all mean? We have this constant cosmic tug of war happening in our minds every single day. We are pulling inward. The world is pulling outward. What is the ultimate result of all this effort?
Well, the practical goal of maintaining this internal gravity is operating as the prime mover. You stop being a reaction to the debris, and you start living from the source.
The prime mover, operating from that original spark rather than just being a reaction to the world.
What's fascinating here is how the framework breaks this down. It uses three core pillars that work together to make this happen: originality, spirituality, and maintenance.
Okay, let's look closely at how these three interact, because they radically redefine some very common concepts we take for granted.
Absolutely. Let's start with originality.
Originality is the signal. This is your singularity. It is the pure, unfiltered essence of who you are before the world got its hands on you, the pure signal.
Exactly. And the second pillar is what keeps that signal intact, which is spirituality. But the phrasing here is vital.
Yeah, this part is wild.
Spirituality is defined as the shielding that keeps that signal clear.
That concept completely blew my mind when I read the notes. Spirituality is the shielding. I mean, we almost always think of spirituality as the thing we are searching for, right? Like the signal itself.
Right. We think of it as the destination.
But here, spirituality is just the protective layer. It is the boundary that blocks out the noise of the debris, so your original signal can broadcast without interference.
It shifts the entire function of spiritual habits. If spirituality is a shield, it means that the practices we adopt,
Like meditation or journaling.
or just taking a walk without your phone, those things, they aren't meant to magically generate enlightenment or add a glowing aura to your life. They are strictly defensive tools.
A defensive perimeter against the outward expansion.
Yes, you are putting up a shield against the noise, so your inner signal isn't drowned out by the static of the universe.
But a shield gets battered over time. It takes damage. Which brings us to the third pillar, right? Maintenance.
Exactly. Maintenance is the daily discipline of returning your attention from the outer expansion back to the inward source.
Because gravity requires upkeep.
It does. Maintenance is the active application of that internal pull we just talked about. It is recognizing when your attention is drifting too far out into the debris, noticing there is a crack in your shield, and deliberately pulling your focus back to the core.
Okay, so let's really ground this for the listener. How do you apply this signal versus shielding concept, this whole astrophysics metaphor, to a typical Tuesday morning when everything is hitting the fan?
Let's do it.
You know, you are waking up, the kids are screaming, the inbox is overflowing, you are running late. How does this actually work in real-world practice?
Let's break down that exact scenario. Normally, you wake up, you see an urgent email from your boss, and immediately your energy shoots outward into the expansion.
Right. You become stressed, you start scrambling.
Exactly. Your entire identity in that moment is defined by the debris, the email, the rush, the anxiety. You have lost your center.
You are thinned out and fragmented before you even brew your coffee.
Yes. But if you're actively practicing this framework, the process changes entirely. You still see the urgent email, the kids are still screaming, the universe is still expanding.
But you pause.
You pause. You recognize the outward pull trying to drag you into the debris.
And you engage your internal gravity.
You remind yourself of your singularity, that dense, silent core of pure potential that exists completely independent of that urgent email.
You put up your spiritual shielding.
Yes. You tell yourself, this noise is not my signal.
And the practical outcome of that is you aren't reacting from a place of fragmentation anymore. You aren't stretched thin.
Right. You still sit down and respond to the email. You still take care of your kids, but you do it from your center.
You dictate the energy rather than letting the debris dictate it for you. You act from a place of 100% potential energy rather than the exhausted, scattered energy of the outer expansion.
It is the profound difference between living on purpose and living in panic.
It is such an incredibly empowering way to view your own mind. So, just to bring this all together for you listening, it starts with realizing your pre-Big Bang singularity, that original, pristine state of self that is already within you.
You don't have to build it. You just have to uncover it.
Then you recognize the inevitable outward pull of the world's noise. The debris, the expectations, the constant expansion trying to thin out your attention every single day.
Next, you use the persistent practice of internal gravity to stay grounded.
Pulling your focus back to the center, letting the rushing river of notifications and demands wash by without sweeping you away.
And ultimately, you protect your unique original signal with the shield of spiritual maintenance, allowing you to operate as the prime mover of your own life.
So the next time you feel completely overwhelmed by your to-do list, or you feel like the noise of the world is drowning you out, remind yourself that you don't need to panic.
You don't need to run away.
And you definitely don't need to add another complicated routine to your life to fix it. You just need to increase your internal gravity. You just need an inward return.
But, applying this physical analogy deeply does leave us with one very compelling unresolved thought to ponder as we wrap up.
Oh, I know exactly what you're thinking.
If your ultimate goal is to maintain your own unique, dense singularity in a universe full of expanding debris, well, what happens when you encounter someone else who is just as deeply rooted in their own original singularity?
Oh, think about that. Two fully realized, infinitely dense points of gravity moving through the world.
When those two distinct singular signals meet, do your respective gravities pull you together into a collision?
Or, like in the physical cosmos, do you catch each other in a gravitational pull and begin to orbit one another, creating an entirely new kind of beautiful, balanced system?
A binary star system of human connection, completely free from the debris of the outside world.
It suggests that true connection isn't about two thinned-out fragments clinging to each other out of desperation, but two dense centers of gravity choosing to share an orbit.
Exactly.
And it turns out that immense feeling of elegant order, that quiet awe you feel looking at the stars, it isn't just out there in the vastness of space. If you maintain your gravity and clear the debris, that exact same elegant order is looking right back from inside of you.